Thank you for tuning in to the archived recording of the Advanced JOSM Training webinar. This training is presented by Michael Heismeyer, Sharon Amoja, and Joffrey Catarega. Due to an unforeseen technical issue, the first 10 minutes of this training were not recorded. This consisted of most of Michael's section on layers and imagery. For the sake of completeness, we have taken this section from a previous edition of this training and inserted it here.
Layer handling. Well, this means I'm going to talk about basically the upper right corner of the JOSM window where you can see the layers. And well, as this is an advanced webinar, I'm sure you're familiar with many of these. At the top, you'll see the data layers, and in the lower part, you'll see the imagery layers selected. Don't be confused if these data layers all carry arbitrary names and not layer 1, 2, 3, 4. It's easy to rename a layer, particularly if you have several in there and want to not to get confused by them. Just click the context menu and there you'll have an entry on renaming a layer and you can give it a more verbose name. This is an example of a pretty unmapped area, and you see some waterways in here. Maybe you would like to map them. But the main point, of course, with a waterway is, well, you don't know the direction of flow of the water, but that is the direction of the way for the waterway in OpenStreetMap. So maybe you've already heard of that in other webinars, but there are some topographical layers which you can use, and they come in quite handy for that purpose. And my favorite here is the OpenCycleMap. If that is not standard in your imagery menu, just go to the imagery preferences, and there you'll find lots of those worldwide layers here at the beginning. There is the OpenCycleMap. There is also something called an OpenTopoMap. I think there are one or two others showing contour lines. And if you activate this layer, at least once JOSM lets me, your CycleMap layer, then you can get a better picture of this here. You can see here there are roughly the 600-meter contour lines here at the east, and the west we are approaching 1,000. So the terrain falls from west to east, which makes it easy in this case to say, well, that's the way the waterways will be flowing. And you don't have to switch them on and off all the time. You can also play around with the visibility. That's this icon here. And you can reduce the opacity of this layer so that anything below that shines through. Might be quite good in order to get a better orientation about the terrain. So whenever you're unsure about what the terrain is, just keep in mind there are a few layers available which can help you in this direction. As far as the imagery layers are concerned, you can tune quite a couple of bits, like the colorfulness, the gamma, which is basically, should activate it first, of course. The gamma, which is something like darkness and brightness, and you can also try to adjust a bit sharpness of those layers. And we'll need that in different situations. So, and of course, you can also arrange the vertical stack of those layers with these arrow keys. When we're talking about layer handling and alignment of data layers, well, generally, there can be a couple of reasons for problems we encounter when working with imagery layers. Every worldwide layer, which we say here, is a mosaic stitched together from individual recordings. Those individual imageries do not often match perfectly because no one's going to do that job manually, of course. So my favorite example of what can happen in a situation like is this one, a road I personally wouldn't want to drive on. So pretty often imagery alignment isn't as prominent as in this part, but well, you can easily see there is an offset of more than 10 meters between those two parts of the road. And even when we are working on projects on the hot tasking manager, there is typically not a single offset across the whole project. So that's one of the problems we will have to face. And I'm going to give you a bit of a feeling of best strategies how to deal with all this. But first of all, I like to show you a different scenery, different imagery layers. If we zoom in closer to here, and I'll exclude this layer here for a moment, we see this is a densely built up city center, and there are also some taller buildings. And it is usually pretty instructive, not just to use the one imagery you're being told to use, but to also have a look at different imageries. This one here is Bing. If you look at the same situation in Maxar, oops, this has been recorded from a completely different angle. So mapping in an area with really high and tall buildings is a bit of a difficult thing. And as you see, someone had been mapping here pretty perfectly. We always tell you, map the footprint of higher buildings. That means map the geometry where it touches the ground. And the reason is pretty easy. If we just compare these two buildings here, less taller one and a higher one here, they seem to be pretty perfectly mapped according to that rule. And if I now switch the imagery, you will see, well, it is still pretty well aligned to the footprint of those buildings. Also, the roof does appear at a totally different area, and that is a good imagery here to tell you why you should never map the roof building, the roof of the building. Use it to determine the exact geometry, but then shift it down to the footprint, because if you'd map it in here, then of course the roof would intersect the road. So most of the imagery we see is never taken from a perfectly vertical position. There is almost always a certain angle involved. So just make sure that you map the building footprint, and switching between different imagery layers can also give you a good indicator of what buildings really look like. So I promised to give you a couple of hints how to deal with imagery mismatch. The point with imagery simply is, well, typically we don't know the real position of an object. Imagery misalignment errors, something below 10 meters, are pretty common. And if you tell me, well, there might be GPS layers, well, GPS has not unlimited accuracy. Even GPS will have a typical accuracy of 1-digit meters. So unless we see an imagery misalignment of some 30 or 40 meters, we can safely assume that, well, anything below that is really within specifications, and we simply don't know what the real position of an object is on the ground. So the best option how to deal with this when mapping is go for least effort. Look what most of the objects, buildings, and roads have been mapped so far. Use this as the reference, and if you need to use a newer imagery, then just shift that newer imagery so that it matches existing mapping. Unless some project instructions have a good reason to tell you something different. But if you're unsure, this is typically the golden rule: go for least effort, because we don't know what the real position is. So in this area, now the Bing imagery layer is active, and we see these buildings here obviously have been exactly mapped from Bing. Now someone's going to tell you there is a newer imagery, Maxar, and please map any additional buildings which are seen there. And when I switch on Maxar, oops, oh yeah, there was a whole lot of activity here to the west of the previously mapped area. So it would be nice to include those buildings as well. But when we look at that scenery we've been looking at right now here with all those, well, let me select them so they're a bit clearer. Then we see, oops, they don't match the imagery. They were a perfect match in Bing. They are no longer a match when looking at Maxar. And if you then have a look at, for instance, this highway here, you get a feeling that probably, yeah, we should keep Bing as the reference. In this example, it really pays just to have a look at GPS traces. So that means go to the download menu or icon, and then do not activate the usual OpenStreetMap data, but just say raw GPS data and download them. And yep, there will be a few of them. In order to see them, let's switch off here the imagery layers, and we see, okay, it finds a couple of GPS traces in here. And when we look at the Bing imagery, this sounds highly plausible that someone was driving along that road and moving down here. When we look at Maxar in that same area, it becomes pretty obvious that people certainly haven't been driving here along the trees. So yes, this is another indicator that Maxar here has an offset. So how do we deal with this? We go back to that scenery with these houses and select them so that they are visible more prominently. And now we switch to Maxar. And when it comes to in the imagery menu, you can, the third entry tells you imagery offset. And if you've got several imagery layers active, then you first have to select the proper one. We are going to determine the offset for Maxar Premium. And if someone, for instance, in a hot project would have told you there is an imagery offset of specified numbers, you could simply enter them in here. Other than that, we will simply drag the imagery so that it matches the existing mapping. So with the left mouse button, we're simply now dragging the imagery so that it matches those shapes here, which were previously mapped. Now we see we have obviously an imagery misalignment of some 5 to 6 meters. And when we think, well, that's the optimum position, we hit OK. And then we have Maxar aligned to existing mapping. And then we can start dealing with these objects here. And as I told you, best idea is always start from the roof, then change the mode here and move it down to the footprint. So that's how you would deal with a situation like this. It is not so important that we have an exact, accurate, absolute position of all objects because we can determine it anyways. But it is important to have a consistent map, which means all the objects should have the proper relative positions. All the buildings should be on the proper side of the road or on the proper side of the waterway, because that's how people will recognize the scenery when they are working on the ground, trying to find people in those buildings. And whenever you're working on a hot project and see that some of those buildings are way out of their alignment, you are invited to correct that. Just as my suggestion is, go for least effort. See what most of the existing objects have been mapped according to, use that as the gold reference unless you are told something different, and try to align everything else with this. And in this way, we can avoid having maps which are somehow distorted. And yes, again, you're invited to play with these settings here for opacity and colorfulness. It might pay sometimes to try to increase sharpness a little bit, but of course you cannot achieve miracles. But in this way, you can see this sun looks a bit blurred, and we can really increase a little bit. We go here, we see the edges a bit clearer, but yeah. That is about what I was going to tell you about these imagery layers and the data layers and how to deal with imagery alignment.
We will now pick up the January 29th recording where it began. Michael is presently using Sentinel Hub Playground to verify which imagery set in JOSM is the most recent. You can find the Sentinel Hub Playground link in the video description below. Sentinel Hub is a website that allows you to view imagery that is taken once a week. You can compare this recent imagery to the imagery that is available in JOSM to determine which imagery set in JOSM is the most recent and likely the best to use for mapping, if the imagery to use is not specified in the project description.
The Sentinel Playground. And you would usually, you go up here. Typically the Sentinel L1C are slightly better resolution, but the other ones would do as well. You can first click it off, and then, well, they use OpenStreetMap orientation, properly attributed, as you see down here. So let's now have a look at how does Abidjan look like right now. So that's this highway intersection we were looking at. And okay, so what you can do here is then there is also a few gain, gamma, and things like that. Oh, that was way too much. Okay, let me make it a little bit clearer in here. And okay, so the point I'd like to make is here we can clearly see that construction is still going on. And that's an image taken 10 days ago. So if you see considerable cloud cover, don't worry, you can pick in here, and they even give you an indication whether it was more or less completely covered with cloud. And as you can see here, imageries are taken every 5 days. That's the promise of the Sentinel project, that they take an image of the Earth, of every place in the Earth, every 5 days, and it's made available through this website for easy access. So if you're in doubt whether the imagery you're currently looking at has something to do with the current reality, I mean, the resolution won't get much better than this one, as I said, but nevertheless, you can easily get an overview. Is that road still being under construction? Is that built up area still correct, pretty much? And so that's a great help to assess whether this imagery is correct. So you see the Maxar one, which shows this under construction, obviously is more recent than the Bing one. One situation which we pretty often run into, of course, is we've got some mapping which doesn't necessarily match with what we see on the imagery. So in this case, it's fairly obvious. We have the Bing layer active, and this mapping here doesn't match it pretty well. So obviously it was mapped from Bing. Well, if we zoom a little bit down here and have a look at the Maxar scenery, then, oh, there is something pretty new. I think we don't need the Sentinel imagery here to conclude that Maxar in this case is newer as well, and we want to map that. We can see, oh, there is some existing mapping in here as well. And if I switch off the layer for a while, you can see that Maxar, obviously this layer here is stitched together from different imageries. There is one on the right, and there is obviously a different one on the left, which you can visually see. And the problem is that, well, they don't match pretty well, because if I switch to go back to Bing, and let us quickly map this one building over here so that we've got a good reference. There were other buildings in here mapped from Bing, and if we now switch to Maxar, we see, oops, the right one here in Maxar is still pretty well aligned with the Bing imagery and the existing mapping, but here we're out of luck. I mean, there is a noticeable difference, and usually when you don't have any project instructions which tell you which imagery should be considered the golden one, the rule to which we all align. I usually would go for, well, least effort. That means if there is an area where quite a number of features have already been mapped from Bing, for instance, in this case, and I've got a newer imagery, I want to add anything else in, I would align this imagery with Bing so that I don't have to realign all existing features. And so in this case, I would say, well, we need to align the Maxar imagery. If you don't have this button in here, there is also imagery offset. We'd like to shift the Maxar premium, so we can simply use then our mouse and make sure that these buildings here in the top row are now aligned with the imagery, something like this. So we see it's roughly a 5-meter offset. This shouldn't worry us a lot because even if you have GPS traces, 5 meters is well within the inaccuracy you can usually expect. So anything below 10 meters is, well, there is no absolute truth because that's typically within the inaccuracy range of modern GPS units. So now we made sure that Maxar fits now the existing mapping, which you can see here. If I go back to Bing, mapping hasn't been shifted. We have shifted the imagery, and that means that now we could start mapping all those new buildings over here. The point is, if you want to shift the existing features, well, it's pretty easy if it is all well mapped individually in here, but pretty often you will see that that features here are always interconnected. We have typically one single network of closely mapped and spaced buildings, and so shifting the imagery is typically what you should do in order to align with existing mapping. As I said, GPS traces don't provide absolute accuracy. In this area, I found a few bits here, and well, but that's here in that part. Well, we can see obviously they align fairly well with the imagery of Bing and Maxar. So it is I think well justified to assume that here in the western part, where Maxar is definitely misaligned with Bing, there was some error in stitching these images together. And okay, so the bottom line is, if you map in a hot project instructions should tell you which imagery to use and follow that, because many people will be mapping with you, and we need to have one consistent base for all mapping which exists. If you don't find any specific instructions, or if you're mapping outside of a specific tasking manager project, then try to establish if the majority of the mapping is aligned with one particular imagery. Make sure that everything is aligned with that particular imagery, and then start over. If you have a situation like this in here, where you have a layer which is fairly new, but obviously misaligned with respect to anything else, realign this layer because that's the least effort, and then we will have to, and then you can start over and map and add the existing the new buildings in.
Michael, we have 2 questions right now.
Okay.
One is from Franz Schultz. It is, what about different offsets caused by old mappings?
Yes, we often see that mapping itself is inconsistent, and of course what you should do then is align it to one imagery base. And if there are no project instructions, again, I would go for least effort. So I would take those buildings or roads which have the fewest number. So of course, if you see an area where 100 buildings have been mapped and 80 of them have been mapped from one imagery and 20 obviously from another one, move those 20. That's the least effort, unless something else in the instructions. But The important point is we need a consistent map. As I said, anything up to 10 meters, well, we don't know where the real truth is. But what we do need is that all the buildings are on the same and the proper side of a road or of a waterway, and that their sequence is right. Because if people will use our maps to provide assistance on the ground, they might be looking for the fourth building on the right side of a highway, and it would be very nice if that building would really be on the right side and not on the left one. So we need a relative accuracy. The map must be consistent in itself, so the distances between buildings should match, and the buildings should be in the proper sequence and on the proper sides of roads and places and highways. But the absolute location is something we can rarely ever determine. Even GPS, as I said, is not 100% accurate, but we need a consistent map. That's the most important bit.
Okay, thank you. And we have a Abdullah Latif has their hand up. So Abdullah Latif, if you still have a question, please unmute yourself and ask. I'll give you a moment.
Yes, actually answered my questions already. So thank
Oh,
you.
okay. Thank you. And then actually we had one more question arrive in chat from Supath Dital. Can we access the latest imagery captured by Sentinel and import it into the JOSM editor?
No, that's what I mentioned earlier. We don't have a license. That's the most important bit. It's exactly the same reason why we can't use Google.
Okay.
So with Maxar and with Microsoft, the provider of Bing, the OpenStreetMap community has agreements. So that's why we can't use it for mapping. And as I also said, the resolution is limited. It doesn't give us more than what I was showing you. But it's great just to have a look at it and see, well, what does this look currently, so I can judge whether the imagery in Maxar or Bing is really a match with the current situation. So trace from that, so that's not a problem here. So this is a great tool if you want to select some imagery on your own because you have no guidance and you would like, of course, to have the latest one. So I would have a look at the Sentinel, for instance, or something similar to see what does it look right now. And then I would go for either Maxar, Esri, Mapbox, whatever we've got, which best resembles that imagery. And then you can start mapping. So it's good for orientation, but we can't use it for tracing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, and I see something in the Q&A window here, what is causing offsets normally. Well, as I said, those imagery layers which we use are stitched together from hundreds of thousands of images. And this is an automatic process which doesn't work always 100% right. So in most cases, so these offsets are caused while those layers are composed. So of course, I've already seen something where it's 50 or 100 meters off, and that's certainly might be a different cause there. Something really went wrong, but those differences, as we see them right here in this Maxar imagery layer, are quite normal and cannot be avoided because, well, the imagery providers cannot, of course, judge every single tile there because that's way too much to do. So yeah, that's the automatic layer stitching process which causes those offsets, and so we'll have to live with that. So yeah, and with that, I think I'd like to hand over to Sharon and the advanced editing part.
Hello, Sharon. Are you still there? You should be able to.
Yes, I am still here.
Okay. Sorry,
Yeah,
thank you.
I'm trying to share my screen. Just a moment.
While you're doing that, we have one more question from Supath Dital. If we apply offset in Maxar imagery, will it only be applied for that tile or all tiles?
It will apply for the layer. So as long as you keep your JOSM open, this offset will apply there. So that means if you change to mapping in a completely different area, you should either erase it or make sure that you compare it with other image resources, because of course these offsets are not consistent across different parts of the globe. If you close JOSM and reopen it again at a later time, then the offsets will all be 0. So they are not preserved, which is a good thing because, as I said, they are only valid in a local area.
There's also one more question from Noel, but I'm going to answer that in the chat. So Sharon, you can go ahead.
Yes, so I'm going to take you through the advanced editing, where we are going to look at river and roads intersections. We're going to look at how to edit buildings, and then we are going to look at the other various tools that we use when editing. Yeah, so I'm just trying to open my screen, but some moment having some difficulties. Yeah, before that, yeah, so on roads and river intersection, what we are going to look at, we are going to look at the 3 types of crossing that we have. We have the bridge where a bridge goes over a river, like, and it's part of a road. And then we are also going to look at the culvert. We all know that culverts are always road levels and waterways that goes through a conduit. So, like, mostly the culverts are always concrete in nature and they go underneath a road. And then the other thing that you're going to look at is the ford. Ford is where a river or a road runs through, a river and a road run through each other. Yeah, so where they meet, it's called a ford. So let me just try to share my screen. I don't know why I'm having trouble sharing the screen. Just a moment. Can you all see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, just a moment. I don't know what's happening here. Oh, shit. Mhm.
Ben, you might have to make Sharon co-host. I think otherwise screen sharing is disabled.
My apologies. Yes, Sharon, you're a co-host now, so please retry sharing your screen.
Are you able to see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Sharon. Sorry about that.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so we are going to start with a bridge. How do we edit a layer where we have a bridge that goes over a river? Yeah, so I'm going to open this layer that I had for the training. Yeah, so let me use Imagery. Yeah, so in our case here, you can see we have a river and we have this road that passes over the river. So what we do when we map a bridge is, first you have to identify, for the bridges, there is always a clear distinction where the bridge starts or ends. So in our case, you can see the distinction here is from this point where the bridge starts, and there is also this other sides of the road where the bridge ends. Yeah, so when you're mapping a bridge, one thing that you must consider is that a bridge does not stop at the edge of water. Okay, that is like here. It does not stop immediately at the edge of the water, because it goes through the other sides of the road. Yeah. So when we want to map, when we want to map a bridge, we have to create two nodes from where the bridge ends and from where the bridge starts and where the bridge ends. So with the A tool, mostly I'm going to use the various shortcut keys, but I'm going to explain what they are and tell you how to get them. Yeah, so if you want to create a node, we use the select tool, that is S, and then we put, sorry, just a moment. We put a node, so we have a node there where that bridge ends, and we'll put another node here on the other side, or where the bridge ends. So we have here we have two nodes. This one where on the other side of the bridge, and this other side on the other sides of the bridge. So we'll click, we'll select both nodes. We select both nodes, and then when you're selecting the nodes, you select the first node, then hold down Shift and select the other node. And then to segment this area, like to segment it from the road, we'll press P on our keyboard to segment it. So when both nodes are selected and you press P, you'll have like this area. You can see that this area is now segmented from the road. So after that, what we do is, because this is still part of the road, but it's just that it's a segment. So we have to add the bridge tag so that we know that that is a bridge. So we select this segment that we have segmented, and then we add a tag. The tag here will be bridge, and then bridge, yes. Then okay. Now you can see it has changed. It has changed the color. Now it's not like the road like it has. But okay, we all know that bridge is always raised. Sorry, bridge is always raised above the waterway. So that we can see that clear distinction, what you're going to do, you're going to add another layer on another tag on the bridge layer. So when you click on it, and then we click on it and then add another layer, another tag, I mean, it will be layer. Here value is equals to 1, then that's okay. So the bridge goes under, the bridge goes above the waterway. So it's layer -1, because we all understand all bridges goes above the waterway. Yeah, so the layer, what I want to also to understand is that at the intersection of the river and the bridge, there is no node because of the layering. Now the tag that we added, the layer 1. So when we try to validate, it's not going to tell us that there is an error, like there is no intersection, because we added a layer to show that the bridge is on top of the layer. So we don't need to have an intersection where the river and the road intersect. Yeah, so that's how we do a bridge. The next one that you're going to look at is a culvert. I'm just not going to save that for a moment. The next one that you're going to look at is a culvert. I just highlighted the areas. So okay, let me see. Yeah, this one. A culvert. Yeah. So a culvert. When we looked at the bridge, you could see a clear distinction of where the bridge starts and the bridge ends. But where we have a culvert, there is no clear distinction on where the road starts, or where, okay, there's no clear distinction on the culvert, because a culvert goes underneath a river. The river goes underneath a culvert. I'm sorry. The river goes underneath the culvert. So this is the culvert, you can see on both sides, and we have our road here, and this is a river. This is a dry a seasonal river. So at this moment, looks like there is no water in this river. So let's just draw the river so that so that now I demonstrate how we can add a culvert when you're mapping. Yeah, so to draw a river, we'll just click A on our keyboard to start drawing. Just escape. Just click A and start drawing. Okay, when drawing rivers, you have to understand that in most cases, rivers do not have straight segment in most cases. So when drawing rivers, try to always make it to have its smooth segments as possible. So we'll just try and draw to the other side for some. Yeah, let's just end it there and add a tag, waterway, stream. Okay, just a moment, escape. Yeah, waterway, stream. So here we have our waterway, and here we have the roads. So how do we do a culvert? As unlike a bridge where we add the two nodes on the road, for a culvert we add the two nodes on the stream or on the river. So we are going to click two nodes. We're going to add two nodes, same as we added on the road when we were doing bridges. So for culverts, you're going to add two nodes. We're going to add two nodes here on that one side of the culvert, and then on these other sides of the culvert. So we have two nodes, this one and this other node. So we are going to select both nodes. Select the first node, hold down Shift key, select the second node, and then the same way we did for the rivers, to create a segment, we click on P on our keyboard, and then now we have this segment here on the river. So now after creating the segment, you're going to add a tag, because if we leave it like this, the tag here is the stream, but now we're going to add a tag to specify that this, whatever we mapped, is a culvert. So we click on the segment, we're going to add a tag. Our tag here is going to be tunnel equals culvert, and then you're going to click OK. So that's how our culvert looks like. But the difference between a culvert and a bridge, it's the culvert goes, the stream goes underneath the culvert. So what you're going to do here, same as we did for the bridge, you're going to add a layer, add another tag layer, but in this case, it's going to be layer -1 because it goes below the road. Yeah, so layer -1. So you can see, the road is above and the culvert is below. Yeah, so that's how we add our culvert. Yeah, the last thing that you're going to look at when on intersections, you're going to look at afford. How do we add afford? Yeah, as I explained earlier, afford the intersection. Afford is an intersection where the roads run across a river. All of them are at the same level, and you're going to look at a perfect example here of afford. Let me just check. Open recent perfect example of afford. Here we have this river. You can see this is a stream, and then you can see this is also another stream, tributary perhaps, and then you can see this is a road. Let me just zoom it so that you can see. You can see this is a road, and then this is a stream. And you can see all of them are at the same level. So we want to add afford. So afford is the intersection where the river and the road meets when all are at the same level. So with that, we have to draw this tributary. First, let's add this tributary. A on your keyboard. Let's just zoom in and add this tributary. I want to add Yeah, so let's just add it. Okay, let's just add it to here. And then add our tag here is waterway stream. Okay. Escape to unselect it. Let me not merge those two nodes first, and then you're also going to draw the road. This is a road here. As we drew the river, so we are also going to draw the road the same way. Just to add some nodes here. We have this one. Okay, let's just end it here. And then add a tag highway. Let's just have it as unclassified. And then escape to unselected. Now we have our road, and now we have our road, and we have our stream. So a ford is the intersection where we have the stream and the road meeting. So what we are going to do here is we are going to add a node at the point of the intersection. Let's say this node was not here. Let's just move it. So we are going to add a node at the point of intersection. So in our case, we have this point as the point of intersection. So we are going to add a node here. Click on A and add a node. And now we have that node at the point where the river and the road are intersecting. You can see if you move, both of them move together. Yeah. So after adding that node, we just go and add a tag to that node. And the tag here is going to be Ford. Yes, and you just click on OK. And now there we have our Ford. So if you try to move them, it moves together because the ford is the point of intersection where the river and the roads are meet at the same level. Yeah, so those are the three road and river intersections that I wanted us to look at today. So any questions before I move on to the next step on the three? That is the culvert, the bridge, or the ford. Okay, if there is no question, we are going to look at the other thing. Before I move to buildings, we're going to look at how can we align roads. Let's say we were mapping and there's some a road was not correctly aligned to the imagery that we are using. So what's the easiest way that you can use when you want to align roads? So here we're going to look at let me take at this data here. Yeah. So as you can see here, we have you can see this. The mapping that was done here is not correctly aligned to how the road looks like. So we have to align it correctly so that it aligns with the imagery that we're using. In this case is Maxar. So of course, what is recommended, you don't have to delete this because it does not align correctly. So what we'll have to do is to realign them. To realign them. So in most cases, you may find yourself realigning one node at a time so that it aligns correctly with the image, and that may be time consuming. So in our case, what we want to do, how do we align the nodes of a road? So we're going to click on the nodes that you're going to align. This is the first node. Hold down Shift and just select all the nodes along that road that you want to align. Yeah, and let's say this is our last node. So after you can see we have selected all the nodes that we want to align. So after they're all selected, just click on L on your keyboard, and you can see now all the nodes are aligned correctly and in a straight line. So for this one, you can just now move it here. No, sorry. Yeah, so you can see now. No, just a moment. Now you can see all of the nodes are aligned in a straight line. According to how it is on the image. So
Apologies for the pause. We will give Sharon a moment. Okay.
mm-hmm.
Is everything okay?
Yes, everything is okay. Any question? Hello, is there any question?
Oh, just a moment, please, Sharon.
Okay. Can I continue?
Sorry. Yes, please continue. There aren't any specific questions for you, though there is a request that you slow down a little bit. You are speaking fairly quickly.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm going to try to slow down. Yeah, the next thing that you're going to look at is buildings. How do we do complex buildings?
I'm very sorry. There is one question. Can you please repeat how to tag a Ford, please?
Okay, yeah, so let's just go back to, okay. So I don't know if this is going to work. No, actually I didn't save it, but I don't want to save it. Yeah, let's just, let me just give an example, like with here, because I don't want to save that. So let's say this is our road, and we had a stream. So we have to first map the stream. Okay, just imagine that this is a stream, because I can see this is visible, and I don't want to save it. But imagine this is a stream. So we are going to first map the stream. Don't mind how my computer is behaving when mapping lines. Yeah, so let's just end it here, and we add a tag. Our tag is waterway, and the value is stream. Yeah, so that is our stream, and then we have to map the the road as well. So let's also map this road. I'm just going to take a small section just for just for demonstration purposes. Let's just map this one. Why is this happening? Escape just a moment there. Okay, let's just have it up there, and then the tag is highway. Then this is let's just use unclassified, because we are not so sure of the tag and deselected. So we have our highway, and we have the stream. So as I said, a ford is where we have a road that runs across the river. So where there is a ford, there is no defined bridge, and there is also no culvert. So the river and the road are all at the same level, as you can see in this our example here. So when we want to add a ford, that is the point of intersection between the river and the road. That is what we call a ford. We add a node to the point where they intersect. So when adding a node, you use A key on your keyboard, or this is the tool, the draw nodes tool, or the A key on your keyboard, and then you just add a node on where they intersect. Now we have a node on the point of intersection between the river and the road. So when you select on the node, you add a tag. You tag the node, and the tag here, the key will be Ford, and then the value will be Ford equals yes, and then you click OK. So here is our Ford, where the river and the roads intersect when they are all at the same level. All clear?
Thank you for going over that again, Sharon.
Yes.
There have been a few requests to repeat specific sections, but I know we have a lot to cover today. So I want to assure everyone that we will, within 48 hours, make this video available for you to view on YouTube if you want to rewatch any sections. We will be sending a follow-up email to all registrants with a link to the video on YouTube. So you will see it. There have also been a couple of other questions that I have been saving in Notepad. I know we have a lot to cover, so let's actually, and these have been questions that have been expanding rather than clarifying what has already been presented. So I want to make sure that we can cover all of the things that we have planned to cover today. And then at the end of the session, any remaining time, I will ask the questions, the additional questions that people have been asking. So please continue, Sharon.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the next thing that you're going to look at is buildings. The various ways you can map buildings, complex buildings, and the various tools to use. Yeah, so when mapping buildings, the first thing that you have to understand is when mapping buildings, so that you get the outline clearly, you have to first determine the longest length so that you get the alignment clearly. So for example, let me just use this as an example. When mapping building, this is the buildings tool, or you can just use B on your keyboard. So let's say I use the buildings tool and start from this end that I want to map this building. As you can see, this is not the correct outline of this building because I started from the shortest length, and that does not give me a clear outline of the building. Escape. So what if you start from the longest length of the building? As you're mapping the building, at least you can see now there is a clear, you get to have a clear alignment, somehow a clear alignment of how your building is going to look like. Yeah, so when mapping a building, always start from the longest side of the building, so that will help you to get your alignment correct. So what I want to introduce is the extrude tool for mapping buildings. So let's map this building, this side, and then, as you can clearly see, this is not the correct outline of this building. So this is not how we are supposed to map it. So let me just click on Z. So the normal way we can map this building is map it to there, and then so how to add these extruding sides of the building, we just click and add another side, and then you select both, holding down shift and J. Now you can see we have that, and then you do that to the other side. You also draw a building. There should be an overlay when you want to like join two buildings together. There should be an overlay. So you click on that, and then you click on this, and then holding down shift and J, so it's joined. Okay, that will be the normal way that you will do this building. But this has various disadvantages, because one, there are some nodes that may be introduced that do not really represent the actual outline of the building, as you can see here. And then the other thing is about the orthogonal shape of the building. In most cases, you'll realize that this building is not perfectly squared, because how we introduced the other building and then joined it together. So the corners in most cases may not end to be like 90 degrees as they are supposed to be. Yeah, so that is the normal way that you'll map the buildings, but you can see there are various disadvantages. The other ways that this method is not always right is especially when we have the tags different. When you use the building tool, the default tag is always building is equals to yes, right?
Sharon?
Yeah.
What are the shortcuts that you're using?
Yeah, for the building tool, I said we use B.
Okay, and what was the shortcut before that? It was shift and something else?
Yeah, shift and J when you want to join.
Shift J for join. Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So that method is not always right, especially when we have buildings with different tags, that method of joining. So let's edit this, the tag for this building. Instead of building yes, we add it as building apartment. Yeah, building apartment, then okay. So we have this tag as building apartment. So let's add another building so that we join it together, so that we join it to the other building. The building tool or B on your keyboard. And then so that we have the other building. To join them, you select both buildings, holding down Shift. And then to join them, Shift and the J on your keyboard. But you can see that brings a conflict. It shows that there is a tag with the conflict. Yeah, so let me just close that. We had this building tagged as building equals apartment, but this other building is tagged as building equals yes, because that is the default tag that comes when you're mapping building using the building tools. So in such case, there is always a conflict of tagging, and it's not possible to use the Shift J when joining the two buildings. So in that case, you have to choose the value that you want to use. Do you want to use the apartments, or you want to use building is equals to yes? Yeah, so if we choose building is equals to yes or apartments, then apply. You can see now it's joined. Let's also B tool and draw this other side. And then just and then Shift J also brings a conflict, because the new building comes with the building equals yes tag. So let's choose apartment as the other tag, and then it's joined. So you have to square a hold on Q on your keyboard to make it squared. Yeah, so that is that's one way that you use, but there is an easier way that you can use when mapping such buildings with the excluded edges. Yeah, so first we have to draw the building using the buildings tool or B on your keyboard, and draw the building. Here we have the building, draw it up to there. And then the extrude tool, here is the extrude tool. It's like a ruler. The tool is like a ruler, or you can also find it on the mode here, extrude. Or the shortcut key for that is to use X on your keyboard. So if I want to extrude these sides of the building, I'll click on X, which is the extrude tool, and make a node here, and then just drag. On this other side, let me also just drag this, because that is where that edge ends. And then also this other side, click, and then just extrude it. And then this other side, you also just extrude it so that you have the correct outline of the building. Yeah, the extrude tool, it's better because one, it takes the tag that the building has. If the building was tagged as building equals apartment, that is the same tag the building will have. There is no going to be conflicts when using that extrude tool. Yeah, so I think that is the easiest. So you just draw the building, then click on X on your keyboard, which is the extrude tool, and just drag this other side and just drag. So that is how we draw buildings with buildings that have extruding portions. I hope all that is clear. Yeah, so still on this area, I'm going to talk about how, let's say you can see here there are a lot of buildings that have the same shape. Yeah, so I think this is a tea farm. Yeah, here in Kenya, this is a tea farm. So most of the workers have buildings most of the buildings are always alike. So how do we do such areas? Are you going to go mapping each and every building? That is going to be time consuming. So in such cases, what you can do, we have these two buildings. We can pick either that we have mapped that looks like these other buildings. So we can select this one and then copy, Control C on your keyboard. And then we move to where we want to add that building, and then paste. And then you just move it. So all you will be doing is just paste and move it. Control V, sorry. Just move it, Control V. Yeah, so that will allow you to do so many buildings at the same time, especially where you have buildings that are alike. That is in terms in terms of the shapes and in terms of the sizes. So you just draw the building and then you select it, control copy, and then you just go ahead pasting, as you move. So that will allow you to draw a lot of buildings as possible. Yeah, I hope that is all clear. Okay, yeah, so that brings me to the next thing on the rotating a building and resizing a building. So we had these buildings that we copied. Let's just select this and copy it. But you can see this one is not the same. This building, it's not the same size and it may be the same shape, but it's not the same size as this building. So if we try to paste it, let's paste it. You can see this word won't just like enter there like automatically on, we want to get the correct outline. So there are various ways that you can use so that you get the correct outline for this building when you have this existing building. One, we can rotate it. To rotate this building, you click on shift and control, both keys, shift and control, and then you just rotate it to how the outline is. That is how you rotate it. Or let me just, that example may not be a clear example, but let me use this. Paste here. Yeah, so we have this one you have pasted. So how do we get the correct outline if we have this building? So here we click on shift and control, and then we just rotate it to the correct outline, and then you can just move it here. So that's how you rotate, use the rotate keys, that is shift and control, so that you rotate the building. Yeah, so let me come back to this. No, let me delete this, and then copy, and then come to this building here. You can see this building is smaller as compared to the one that I've just pasted. So what do you do in this case? Okay, let's just move it to where the building is. But because this building is smaller than the building that we had, or let's say the building that you've mapped, or you are modifying a building was mapped, not the correct outline, like it was bigger than as compared to the correct outline of the building. So what you do here is you select the building, and then use the control and alt keys on your keyboard to resize it. You can use the control and alt keys on your keyboard to resize it according to the shape of the shape of your building. Control and alt, resize it. So maybe in most cases you won't get the correct outline. So here you can still use the extrude tool, X on your keyboard, and then just drag there and then drag it so that you get the correct outline. Escape, let's just select it. You can still also drag it so that you get the correct size. You drag it inwards and outwards so that you get the correct size. When you drag it outwards, the size increases. When you drag it inwards, the size reduces. So you drag it until you get the correct size of the building. Yeah, so that's how we resize a building, and that's how we rotate a building in case where we have the building not correctly outlined, and that's how we do duplicate buildings. Is there any other question for me before I continue? Okay, so
no, there are no other questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I'll still on buildings. Yeah, I got something that I also wanted to share. Yeah, this one, you can see this building, how it is. We have this section here. I think it's circular. So how do we do that? Because for the extrude tool, it only allows for squared shapes, buildings. Okay, let's just try to do that to map. B on your keyboard, and let's map this one. If we use the extrude tool to extrude this part, click the node there. and the node here. You can see how it is. That is really not the correct outline of the building, because this part is somehow like circular. I think you can see if it's zoomed out, it's somehow circular and not like squared as it is. So just Control Z. So what do we do here? So here we'll have to create another. We have to create another, like to draw a circular building. So we have the various ways you can do. The tool here only allows us to draw rectangular shaped buildings, but we have different ways we can navigate through drawing buildings that are circular shaped and buildings that are rectangular shaped. So we have for the buildings that are rectangular shape, that is the use Alt and R and B, then Alt and R. It allows you to draw buildings that are rectangular shape. But for buildings that are circular shaped, use Alt and Z. So you can see the tool changes, and now that allows you to draw buildings that are circular shaped. So you just have to draw like a diameter, and then it picks the other parts of the building. So in this case, this is the circle is here, and the diameter is between this node and this node. So we have those two buildings. We have this one that is rectangular in shape, and we have the other one that is circular in shape. So here the joining works better. So you just click on both the buildings, and then holding down Shift and J, and you have your building with the correct shape. So if you want to like copy it to the other buildings that are similar, use Control Copy and then Control Paste. But this is not the correct outline. You want to rotate it, use Shift and Control to rotate it to the correct outline. But now you'll just move it to the other buildings. You can see this is not the correct Shift Control. So as you rotate it, and then you can just select it and then move it to where it is. So if you want to reshape and resize, just move inwards and outwards. Yeah, so that's how we do that. The next thing that I'm going to
A quick question.
Okay.
Is there a shortcut to select overlapping buildings?
Sorry?
Is there a shortcut to select overlapping buildings?
When we have two buildings overlapping each other?
Yes.
No, you just use the S key. Yeah, we have the select tools here, but if you want to select them, you use the S key, S on your keyboard, and it selects the building that you want to select. So if you click on S, it select, and if you want to click both, you hold down Shift, and then you select the other one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so the other thing that I'm going to talk about is maintaining history of the building. I wish I had a place where somebody had mapped. Okay, let me just open this one. Yeah, so here we have yes, we have this building here. Let me just use this one. So as you can see, this building is not correctly outlined as it is on the image. You can see this other building as well, and this is not squared. We also have this other building as well. Maybe the imagery the person used was a different imagery than the one we are using. So in most cases, you may be tempted to, like, because you can see this is not correctly outlined to the building that you want to draw. So you may be tempted to delete, but you can see this one. If you click on it, the author, you can see it was done by Florent. And if you delete the buildings, if you delete a building or just any object on OSM, it interferes with the history. Like, the history is deleted, and if I delete this building, it won't the mapper Florent here won't like identify as like he once mapped this building. So the history will be lost, and he or she won't be recognized as like he participated in mapping this building. So what is always advised is to maintain maintain history. So that's how we can do it, is by reusing or recycling objects that you have mapped. So what we can do here is, one, you can use the rotate, you can rotate this building, or maybe click on resizing and reshape it so as to get the correct shape, that is modifying it. Or the other thing that you can do is, we want to maintain that history, you can just push this aside and then just draw this building new. Oh, it's still on circular shape, so Alt R so as to take it to rectangular shape. Yeah, so we draw this building here. So that is the outline of that building. So as you can see, it's a new object because I haven't saved it yet. So it won't I want to be identified as the one who did it. So if you want to maintain the history, we click both the buildings. This is the old building and the new building. Clicking on, holding on Shift on your keyboard, you click on the new building that you have added. So you can see two objects have been selected. One that was done by Florent and the other one that I've just done but haven't saved. So my username is not visible. So because we want to maintain the history of this building, we click on Shift, Control, and G, all the three together. Now you can see this building that we have just added. It's the history is maintained. It has been done by Florent. So the history is not lost. Let me just repeat that. Control Z. We have this building that was done by Florent that was not correctly done. So we just pushed it aside, and then we did a new building, but we haven't saved it. So to maintain the history, we select both buildings. We select both buildings holding on Shift. And then to maintain the history, use the Shift, Control, and G all together on your keyboard. And then now we have the building correctly outlined and the history still maintained. It's Florent is the one who did it. So the history is maintained. So that's how we maintain the history of an object instead of deleting it, which is not always recommended. Okay, yeah, so I'll go to the next one. Don't mind the other objects that were mapped incorrectly. Yeah, we are doing some modification. This is some area in Kenya. So we have this place here, and according to your interpretation, maybe someone will say, "Oh, this is one building. Like all of this is one building." Someone will say these are two buildings, 3 buildings, and all that. But you can see another perfect example is here. Another perfect example is here. Let's just use this one. So what is always recommended is that there are always buildings that share a wall. Yeah, buildings, they have two different, let's say different, how do I call it? Different gardens or different entrances. But these are two different buildings with two different entrances, but they share a common wall. And this is common in urban centers, town centers, where we have detached or semi-attached buildings. Yeah, so this is mostly common in urban centers where we have detached or semi-attached buildings. Another common places is maybe informal settlements, but for informal settlements is always so difficult to determine if these two buildings share a wall. So what is always required when you're mapping informal settlements with the buildings that looks like this is that you use your judgment, and the other thing, your correct judgment, and the other thing is always read the instructions, because the project manager may always say that maybe it's an informal settlement and you may see that they're sharing a wall, which is not the case. So they always say you mapped them differently. But if you're really not sure to map them differently or individually, or like map them as they share the same building, what is always recommended is just map them separately, so that when someone who is on the ground, who is doing some ground truthing, or a validator who is doing validation and clearly understands
clearly understands that these are maybe two buildings, he or she now can be able to join them. Yeah, but if you're not sure, just map them separately. So how do we map buildings that share a wall? Like for us in this case, let me start with this one. You just draw the building as you draw it the normal way. The buildings tool or B on your keyboard, and then we draw it here. As you can see, there is also this extension from this other side. So extrude tool, click the node here, click the node on the other side, and then extrude. Now that is that section. But we have this other building. This is a different building, but they share a common wall. Here, this is not a wall. This is a, how do I call it? This is the building apex. Yeah, the building apex. This is not a wall. This is the building apex. The wall here, you can see like somehow this looks like a ridge. So that is where the wall is. So when you want to map buildings that share a wall, what you do is just click on B on your keyboard, like you want to map a building, and then click on the first node that they share, and then click on the second node that they share, and then you just drag to where it is. Same to this one, click on here where the building starts and where it ends here, and then just drag. Same to this one, click on, okay, let me just exclude this a little, yeah, escape, click on B, then here you click on that, and then on the other node, and then you extrude, and then this one, click on that, the other node, and come to that part later. So you can see this how many buildings you've mapped. We have 1, 2, we have this building, we have this other building, we have this other building. So if you try to move them, you can see how they behave. The nodes have merged. So if you want to move them, you have to separate the nodes. So Control Z, Control Z. Yeah, so we have them. So we have this one building, we have this building, we have this another building. So in such cases, when you're mapping such an area, it's not recommended, like, okay, if you can map them as separate buildings, that will be okay. Because let's say you're doing statistics, you're looking at maybe it's sensors, and you map this building as one. So if it's a residential area, maybe they will assume it's one family that lives here. But if you map them separately, now we'll say, okay, this is a building for this. There is one family that lives here, the other family on this building, the other family on this building. Yeah, so that's how we map buildings that share a common wall. Yeah, so I'll go to the next one. How to unglue or merge nodes. You can see this one, the two nodes are merged because you can see if you try to move, they move together. So how do we unglue? Sorry, how do we unglue the two nodes? So the two nodes that we want to unglue here, it's this one. We have that one node. Hold on Shift and select on the other node that you want to unglue, and then Shift G on your keyboard. Sorry. Yeah, so call it this one and this one, and then you click G. The fun blowing one node is used. Okay, fine. So let's try to unglue one node. So if you click this one and you click on G, you can see that node is unglued from that one. And then on this other side, want to unglue that one, you select the node and then click on G. You can see now it's unglued from the other node. And now the opposite is when you want to merge the nodes. So what do you do? So when you want to merge the nodes, you have to select the nodes that you want to merge. In our case, is these nodes here. We want to merge this node and this node, and we want to merge this node and this other node. So you select on the first node that you want to merge, hold on Shift, select on the second node that you want to merge. When both the nodes are selected, you click on M on your key, on your keyboard. You can see both nodes are merged. And then on the other side, you want to merge this node, you select on it, hold on Shift, select on the other node, and then M on your keyboard, it's merged. So with that, you can also now, now do the modifications, like move the nodes or do extrude. No, sorry, that's what I want to extrude, like select, and maybe just move them to where they're supposed to be. No Q on your keyboard, yeah, then extrude to how they are supposed to be. With this one here, then this one. Yeah, so that is basically how we glue and join nodes. Yeah, so I think that is all from me, and I hope I haven't forgot anything. Yeah, that is all from me. Any question?
Someone would like to ask, how do you separate the nodes? Oh, and then Michael explained this. A node which is shared by several features can be unglued with G.
Yes, yes. To separate the node, you just click on the node that you want to unglue and then use G on your keyboard, and then you can see it separated from the other node. If you want to merge, you select the two nodes that you want to merge, hold down Shift, select the other node, and then use M on your keyboard. You can see now it's glued. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Those are all the questions at the moment. I do want to say, again, for anyone who joined late, we will be making a YouTube video available. Based on questions and recommendations I've seen, we will actually be adding chapters to training videos going forward to make it easier for people to see, to reference specific parts of the video. That will take a little bit of extra work, so it will actually be about 72 hours before the video is available rather than 48 hours. Just so everyone knows. Thank you very much, Sharon.
Yeah, let me just add something a little because, okay, yeah, maybe most of you did not understand the various shortcut tools. The various shortcut tools, you can just always get them here in the tools. You can, for split, you use P. So these are the various shortcut tools that are always here. So it, yeah, on this.
We are seeing a different window. It says Zoom.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, you can see JOSM now, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so the shortcut tools are always here. You can always just find them here on the menus here, the various shortcut tools, like the tools we have used the split way, combine ways, add nodes, align nodes, the L tool. You can always find the shortcut tools here, and glue, relations. Yeah, so all the shortcut tools are always on the menus. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Sharon. I'll just take on from there. So in this session, we're going to just look at selections and filters. So these are very useful, especially when you want to look at a particular type of data, or if you want to do some cleanup and make the data more clean. So as you can see, I have already downloaded some data here into my JOSM. This is data for color in Uganda. And of course, when you look at something like this, it can be like, intimidating. It can be like a lot of data. And if you're not careful, you may even end up maybe modifying things without your intentional doing so. Yeah, filters come in very handy to help you to look at a particular type of feature. So I'm just going to quickly show you some useful filters and also that to-do lists. So yeah, how do you add filters? yeah, if you don't have the filters window, you can always add it from the Windows menu here. So this is filter, which you can also add using the shortcut Alt Shift F. So it is appearing in my Windows panel here. So when you add the filter window, at first it is empty, but if you have been using some filters before, then they are always available in your filter window. So for example, one that I've been using in the past is the highway filter. So this is highway equals all. You can see when I activate this filter, I see only highways, only roads in Kampala, because that's like the tag that is used for tagging roads. So that means for you to use a filter, you have to be familiar with the tagging system for OpenStreetMap. And there's, of course, the wiki, which shows you how a particular feature is tagged. So how do you add a new filter? So for example, let us say I want to look at all the waterways in this area. I'll just come to my filter window here, go to the plus button here, which is add filter. And basically this will give you a search string where you can search for the filter that you want to add. So I want to add waterway. I know waterways are added are tagged as waterways. So it can be waterway, for example, river, waterway stream. So I want to, to see all the waterways in my data. So I'm just going to go with waterway equals the asterisk, which is all. And if I submit my filter, the filter will be added here. So the filter is active. It has actually disabled about 2,662 objects. But if I want to hide like other things and just see only waterways, then I will I'm going to use these three buttons here. I'm going to use the enable, the hide, and then the invert. So you can see there are three checkboxes. So the first one is for enable, another one is for hide, another one is for invert. So if I select all the three, it's going to hide everything else, and it will just show me only waterways. Okay, so this can be useful. For example, if I want to see like if I'm mapping like drainage in Kampala and I want to see the drainage network, this can be very useful. Okay, so that's one quick example. Another example is I may want to see, for example, buildings. Then I'll add the buildings filter. So I'll just come here and say building equals or I'll submit my filter. Then it will appear here. Then I'll just do the same thing, like, activate these checkboxes, and then it will hide everything else. And then it will just show me only the buildings. And if I uncheck the hide one, it will show the other features in the background, but they will be kind of grayed out. So I can see the other features in the background, but they're grayed out, meaning that I can't select them, but I can see them in the background there. And if I click on the invert one, it will invert my selection, my filter, meaning that it will show me everything else apart from building. So it's like I have inverted the filter. The other filter that can be useful, you can also combine two things. So for example, I may want to see waterways and roads. So I'll use that kind of concatenation tool, and then I'll just write waterway or highway. So what this will do is it will filter for me both highways and waterways and hide everything else. So yeah, this is of course also useful because sometimes you want, for example, the drainage in relation to the roads, and you don't want to see that with all the other data. So that can be very useful. The other thing that you can also use in the combination with the filters is the to-do list. And yeah, the to-do list is a plugin. So if you want to know how to install plugins, just go to edit preferences. You go to your plugins here. You search for the plugin you want to add, which is to do, and then click OK, which will add it. So for me, I'll not add it since I already have it, but I'll just show you how I would use it together with filters. So I may want to, for example, let me just use amenity equals school. So I'm going to filter all the schools in this area. So amenity only, okay, amenity equals school. So I'll submit my filter. And what this will do, if I activate the hide and the invert, it will show me all the features that are tagged as schools here. Yeah, and of course, you may want to select. So I'll just select just a part of this. So if I select here, I can add these to the to-do list. And what this allows me to do is that if I want to check like maybe one item by one item, I can do that. I can double click, check this. For example, I can see this is Bina Islamic School, Bina Islamic School. I can add my imagery. So like if you want to go like feature by feature and you want to check one by one, that's how it can be used. So I can see here, like, okay, this is a duplication. There are two schools, two nodes for schools, which are, in the same area. So I can decide, to delete one or merge the two. So yeah, that's how it can be useful. So I can then just, so we use this mostly if you have done like data collection in the field and you want to add it to OSM data, but you want to check for existing data before you add the new data. So this tool can help you to do that. Yeah, of course, you can also clear your to-do list. For example, if I right click and say clear to-do list, it will clear the to-do list. I just want to show another example of how I would use this. Let us say I want to add buildings, all the buildings here into my to-do list. So what I would do is to add the filter for buildings. Let me hide the imagery so that it's a bit more visible. So you can see here I have I have filtered everything out, and now I have only buildings. So let me use this tool here, the lasso select. I want to select out buildings in a certain area and add them to my to-do list. So as I want to add these particular buildings to my to-do list, I've selected them. Of course, to select, you can also use Control A if you want to select everything. But what happens now is that it has selected the nodes and the ways. If I try to add that to the to-do list, it's going to add for me all the nodes, which are 548. I don't want that. So it has selected all the nodes, including the ways. I want only the buildings. So how do you, I'm going to clear the to-do list. How do you do that? So to be able to unselect the nodes and make sure only the ways are selected, I'm going to use a shortcut, which is Shift plus U. So Shift plus U, when I press that, it's going to unselect the nodes and keeps the ways selected. So if I add my buildings now to the to-do list, you can see I have a total of 26 buildings selected. So that's how you can unselect, select only ways. Basically, if I select everything and then you press Shift plus U, which is the shortcut, for unselecting nodes, and then it will just select on other ways. Then you can, add them to the to-do list and just go through item by item if that's your intention. Yeah, so that's I think basically it. We have looked at some filters which are useful. Maybe I'll just show you two more filters that I like using. One is the timestamp filter. You may want to look at data. Let us say you were working with a team and we were doing mapping in a certain area, and you want to look at data for, for a particular time period. So let us say I want to see data for Kampala that was only mapped or modified from 2021 going onward. So I'll add a filter, and that filter that I'll add is called timestamp. Then I'll write a full colon, and I'll write the year. So this is 2021. I want from 2021, maybe February 1st. So you write starting with the year, the month, and then the date. Then I'll just write a / and then submit my filter. So my filter has been added here, but it's not yet active. So if I come here and add the hide and also the invert, so it's now select. It has hidden everything else, and it's only showing me the objects that were modified from February 2021 onwards. I can also do a range of dates. I may want to see data that was modified or added, let us say from January 2021 to June 2021. So the way I would do that, still I'll use a timestamp. Then I'll write the year. So I want 2021, January to January 1st. So then I'll write / 2021 still. I want until June, June 30th. So I want to see the data that was mapped in that time period. So I'll submit my filter. And then I'll activate it here. So now I'm looking at only data that was mapped or modified between January 2021 to June 2021. The other one that can be useful is if you want to look at data set for only one particular user, you can also do that. So, and there are some other, filters here, and there are like some hints here that can help you to build these filters. So you can see here on metadata, I can search by filter by a user, by ID, by a version, by change set, by timestamp. So if I click here on user, it has added for me a user, then I'll just write a username. So let's say if I want to see edits made by this user in this data set, I'll submit my filter, activate it, and then it will show me all the edits that were made by that particular user in this particular data set. So if I want to check like for data quality, let's say someone is mapping badly and you want to check only the data that they have mapped and you want to rectify it, you can do a filter by a user. So that's how we do filters, and that's how we do selections in JOSM. I'll stop here for now and hand back to the next person if there isn't any questions. Thank you.
Yeah, so the next part would be conflict resolution. So let me share my screen again. So you should see my presentation, at least soon. Can I get some feedback? Oh.
It is just starting to show your screen.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah, it's
Yeah, I see
just,
conflicts
okay.
do not mean that you did something wrong.
Exactly. That's what I'd like to start with. Well, conflicts may appear when you upload data from JOSM, and the reason is that while you are mapping, other people might do so as well, in particular if you're mapping with a hot project. So, once you edit a feature, want to upload it, and someone else edited this as well, then there is a problem. And JOSM will notify you that there is a problem by showing this message, conflicts detected. Well, the important bit to keep in mind is it's not your fault. Well, this just happens with coordinated mapping in a certain area. And I'll show you a way how to cope with that and hopefully clarify these bits. So it offers you a couple of buttons here at the bottom: synchronize this one conflicting way only, or synchronize the entire data set. I would almost suggest that you synchronize the entire data set, because you first need to get an overview how many conflicts there are. If you see 50 or 100 conflicts, then it might be better to scrap the work which you did, delete that layer and restart new, because well, fixing 50 or 100 problems certainly isn't the way to go. If it's just 2 or 3, I will show you that very often this is not that difficult. So synchronize the entire data set, and then it'll move here. In this case, it says, well, there was one conflict detected, and in JOSM you get a conflict window. So well, typically it's it's one of those panels here on the right. This would be the conflict layer in here. It should appear automatically once a conflict occurs. Otherwise, as usual, you can activate it from the Windows menu. Here it says, well, the conflict concerns one highway. Pretty often conflicts will occur with highways. You added one highway which merges into that highway. Someone else did it at another place, and then you're up for a conflict. That means now we have to get an overview why there is a conflict and how we can fix that. And if you double click on such an entry, a resolution window will open, which will at first look somehow intimidating. Well, it is less intimidating as you might think, because, well, it simply contains 3 columns. The left one, which is entitled My Version, shows all the nodes which you wanted to upload. Their version is the current, most recent version, which is in the OpenStreetMap database. And it's color-coded, so that means anything marked in green is the same, it's unchanged, it's present in both versions, so we don't have to worry about that. Red nodes are present in one version only, and those marked with a salmon color are present but have a different location. So what does that mean for my version? My version means it had, well, these here are, these 5 green nodes at the beginning are unchanged. Then obviously my version here contains a number of nodes which changed their position. So we modified probably the highway in order to reflect the proper imagery geometry. And we added a couple here at the end. Then the latest version in the database contains all those changed here as well, but someone else in the meantime introduced a couple of new nodes which were added here. These are the red ones in their version. And then here we'd like to have our ones here. So at the central column is our playground, where we can compose the best of both worlds. That means we construct a new version, which we then upload to the database. And that means how can we proceed in such a case? In this case, it's pretty easy, because I'd say, well, we can accept everything which is here in the version from the server, because we didn't do anything in that respect. So we copy all those nodes to the merged version. And then finally, we add the ones which we added at the end of the highway. And this should be a perfect new version. That means you can, by simply clicking here, you can select entries from their version, and you can select entries from your version here, and then use these buttons here to compose the merged version. So unless you select anything, there are only 2 buttons active, which would mean simply copy anything into the merged version. So we start with the version on the server, which contains the first part of the road, where we say, let's accept this as a whole. So we simply click on that lowest button, and we get a merged version, which so far contains a copy of this most recent version on the OpenStreetMap database. Now we have to add our new ones, which are the ones we added here, which do not yet have an OpenStreetMap ID, which are colored in red. So we select those ones. They appear in blue here. And then, well, we have to decide, of course, where to add them. The top button means add them right at the beginning, which would, of course, be completely wrong. And this button here says add them at the end, which is perfect because these are new nodes with which we extended the original highway. We might also select one of those nodes, and then 2 more buttons become active, where you can copy those nodes either immediately before or after a selected position. So you have full control how you can compose a new version from these 2 worlds, the current version 1 here from the OpenStreetMap database, and the one which is locally here in your editor. And once you are satisfied, you will then have to click on the freeze button, but you can also unfreeze this at any point in time if you want to make further modifications. There might be the case that the nodes are not your problem, but probably some of the tags, and this is why this conflict resolution window offers several tabs here, which are organized pretty similarly. So if you move to the tags window, you would get the tags in your local version on the left. You would get the tags from the most current version in the database on the right. And then you can compose, well, whatever you think is appropriate as a new version here in the central part. So, and members would apply to relations, of course. So this conflict resolution window enables you to overcome these problems by having a look at how does the most recent version of the database look like? What, in contrast, is your version which you were about to submit? And if there is an easy way how to overcome that, you can just compose a new version. Finally, say apply resolution, and then you have to resubmit your layer to the OpenStreetMap database using upload. And hopefully that would work, well, unless someone else is now editing that highway. Of course, there will be situations where having a look at this is too intimidating, and then you better scrap that. But typically, if it's a highway, people are working on different ends of the highway. So you did something in here, someone else did something somewhere else, maybe a kilometer away. So there is a good chance with a highway that you can compose a new version and don't have to restart your work. If it was maybe a building as a multi-polygon, then things might look different. But giving it a try is certainly preferable to simply skipping the layer. But that's how conflict resolution works in JOSM. And yeah, that's something I wanted to show you here. Just let me have a look. Do we have any questions concerning this part here? If that is not the case, then I'd simply, well, as we're pretty advanced in our time, get back to Jeffrey and ask him to present relations.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Michael. I'll just go ahead and share my screen again. Okay, yeah, so just first of all going to walk us through some slides to just explain the concept of relations, and then after that we shall look at some few examples, but I'll try to be brief since we are kind of coming towards the end of time. So yeah, to begin with, yeah, what are relations? Yeah, and just to confirm, if Ben, maybe you could confirm for me, can you see my slides?
I can see your slide.
Yeah, thank
Oh,
you.
wait, sorry, I see your JOSM.
It is a slide, but it has JOSM. If it has
I
like
see.
3.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. Yeah, so what are relations to start with? So basically, the major elements we use when editing in OpenStreetMap or adding data to the OpenStreetMap database are nodes, we have ways, and also we have relations. So where do we use nodes, and where do we use ways, and where do we use relations? So of course we use nodes when we are adding, points. For example, I want to add like a school, a village, I can add it as a point. If I'm adding a road, I'll add it as a way. If I'm adding a building, I'll add it as a way which is closed, which forms an area. But then there are some features which we map using relations. And what that really means is that these are kind of like groups of elements that can't be, that have to be combined to kind of like come up with a feature. So an example can be, for example, yeah, boundaries. I think that's like the most common. When we are mapping boundaries, we normally use relations, because it can be like a boundary of a state or a country, but inside there is like a region, and there is maybe a district, and maybe there is a county inside. So to show that these all like sub elements are related to that particular country, they have to be mapped as relations. The other thing we normally use when we are mapping to add as relations is land use. Like when adding a forest or a national park, you find yourself using relations. Or if you want to add a lake, for example, of course you find most of the things already added in OpenStreetMap. So how do you know something is actually a relation? If you come across it in JOSM or in your editor when you're mapping. So one of the things that you'll notice is that it will show the word "a member of." So if you select the item and you look in the tags and memberships window, you'll see the word "a member of," meaning that that feature is a member of a bigger relation. And of course, if the relations window is open, you also see the relations that the elements or the members that make up that relation. Yeah, and if you select one of them, it will also show up in the selections window here. So that's the easiest way to know that this is what I'm dealing with, or what I have selected is a relation. It will show you a word "a member of" here. Of course, it will show that specific tags, but it also show below the tags that it is a member of a relation. And the kind of like the most common or the easiest relation that you come across is the is the multi-polygon. So I think if you want to practice how to do relation, this is like the easiest one that you can really start with. What this means is if you want to draw a building which has a courtyard inside. So basically we would draw, two buildings, like one inside the other, and then we will go to tools, and then we will create a multi-polygon, which has a shortcut Control B. And what happens when you do that, it will create what we call a multi-polygon. So, and it will show you here in the memberships that this feature is a member of a multi-polygon. So that's like the easiest kind of relation that you can come across. So yeah, we are going to try it out as well, and show you how that works. The other one is that is very common, is when you're mapping like stadiums, like for sports, like this one here. It will be tagged also as a multi-polygon, because you have, like, for example, the running track outside, then you have the playing field itself. So show that these two elements are part of the same kind of like stadium. You'll have to map them as multi-polygons, which form kind of a relation. They're kind of related to each other. Yeah, so one of the things that you have to be aware of is that a relation also has, it has roles. So a role in this way, for example, for the building example we used here, the inner one can be, can have the role outer, and the one inside will have the role inner. So there is one that has the inner role and the other one has the outer role. So those will be like the roles of that feature inside that kind of relation. So to add the relation, of course, you go to the relations window here, and then you say create new relation, and then you'll add a relation to existing kind of features that you might be dealing with. Okay. The other thing that is useful when you are dealing with relations, you may have selected something which is a relation. Let us say it is a road, which is like the main route that goes across a country, but you may want to see, like, where does this start and where does it end, really? And the way to do that is to download its members. So you do that by selecting the route. And then you go to download members, and that will show you the members of that particular relation. So you have to be sometimes careful, because then it might show you like a very kind of long thing. For example, this is an example from the US. This is a road which has a reference 285. So the roads have names. So this is route 285. And you can see it has 587 members. So what really that means is that's like 587, let us say, segments. Of course, some of these members may be, for example, bus stops across the route, but it has like 587 members. So it's like a very kind of long and big relation. Okay. And because the highway has so many segments across its entire length, each state will have like a relation for the part of the road which passes through that kind of state. And then there will be like the super kind of relation which combines all the different pieces together. So things like, for example, bus stops or train routes also have something, will be part of that kind of relation. Yes, so sometimes relations can be also complicated if they span across countries. For example, this one is an example which shows it shows like land use, like a forest, but you may find like inside that forest there is even other, smaller sections which are like maybe farmland, which are also part of like the bigger relation. So yeah, a relation can also have different kinds of features inside it. So in this case, what we are looking for is a forest boundary, and you can see that it is made up of 44 ways, some of which are representing like the outer boundary, and some being holes, like in the building courtyard example. You can also see that some of the ways that are also part of the county boundary, like here you can see like who are the members that make up this kind of relation, to get like to understand the full extent. Okay, so going back to this simple example of a multi-polygon for a building, if you open up like the relations kind of window to see what is inside, you'll see that there are two rows. There is outer and there is inner. So in this case, yeah, it shows like who are the members and what are the attributes. So you can see that the relation also has like the key and value. So it still has the tag building equals yes, but also has a key which is type, and the type is multi-polygon. So you can always see the kind of like the attributes of a relation by going to the edit window here under relations. The other thing that is very important is when you are dealing with broken relations. So sometimes you may want to fix something that has been broken. That's why we are advised to be careful when handling relations, because for example, there was a case where a lake, like the Lake Victoria in Uganda, disappeared from the map. And that happened, it wasn't like the whole lake was deleted, but it happened because it was broken. The relation was broken. So a particular part of the lake was broken, and it distorted like the rendering of the lake. So someone had to go and fix that. And one of the ways you can see this is if you look at this particular example where this arrow is pointing. After saying select the members of the relation, you can see all the different members, but you can also see this loop. So if it is, a park, and like the boundary has all been selected, then this loop will be complete. But if it is broken, then you'll start seeing things like this, where a particular part has been broken, but also it may be because they have not downloaded the whole thing. So if you want to see that nothing is broken, download all the members so that you can see how everything is kind of piecing together. So you can see even in this example here, it shows that, yeah, this way is not connected to the next relation in the member. And that's why you select like this individual piece, then go to JOSM and make sure that those two are connected, and you'll find the loop kind of connecting, and you have like a full kind of view. So I'm just going to switch back to JOSM and show you just some few examples of relations in like 5 minutes, and then we will end. So just switching to my JOSM now. Ben, could you confirm if what I have now is JOSM?
I actually see your JOSM now, yes.
Yeah, so again, this is data for Kampala. So basically, let me try to close some of the other windows that we don't need now. If I select something here, I'm going to select a boundary. So this is a boundary in Kampala. And if you see right here, it is showing me this feature that I have selected is a boundary of admin level 8, which is called Makindye, but it has 34 members, and it is showing me that it is incomplete. It is saying me it is incomplete because I have not downloaded all the members of this relation. But this same boundary is also part of another area in Kampala, which is called Nakawa. So that's why like relations are important, because boundaries are also borders. So on one side is another place called Nakawa, and another side is another place called Makindye. So if I come here and say download members, it will download for me all the members of that relation, and then I can see them. So you can see now it's now no longer showing me the word incomplete, but now it is showing me the full extent of this boundary, which is called Nakawa. I'll again right click and select download the members of the other one as well. So download the members, and I'll also see the full extent of the other boundary, which is up here. And let me just add my filter out only boundary, so that you see the full extent of those two. So I'll just select boundary here in my filter, and now I can see the boundary. So yeah, if you're going to be adding boundaries of areas in your country, filters, and also you have to be you have to use relations. So you'll be editing relations and adding them as relations. So that is one example. The other one that I had mentioned, of course, was a stadium. So yeah, for those of you who like soccer, when the football team in Uganda is playing, we play from Mandela National Stadium, and you can see it here in Kampala, and you can see it is also a multi-polygon. So it has 2 members, and if I check here, if I go to edit, I can see what are the properties of this relation. So it has the inner. If I select here, I can see this is the inner one, and this is the outer. Okay, so this is like the running track, and then maybe this is the outer of the building. There are also like some other fields outside the stadium, but they have also been mapped as multi-polygons. So that's another example. The other thing you can map as relations are roads which have routes. So for those of you who are interested in mapping like public transport or road systems in your country, you'll be adding them as part of relations, which means like there can be a route which has like a particular name, and when you're adding things, for example, like a bus stop, you'll be adding it to that particular route as a relation. If you're adding, for example, things that Sharon was showing us, adding a bridge will now also become a member of that relation. So I've just selected one example here, and of course I can check here. It is Ginger Road. It has 12 members. I can click on edit to see the properties. I can see the individual kind of road segments in that route. There is another one here, which is Nakawa Banda, where you get a route. If I say select relation, you can see it has been now selected on my map using kind of a purple color, so that I can make it out of the other features. The other example I can give is a wetland. If you're going to map a wetland, you may have to add it as a relation, as a multi-polygon as well. So I'll just show you an example as well from here, from my data set. So there is one here. If I select this is actually Lake Victoria. I may not be able to show you all the members of Lake Victoria as it is very big. Let me just show you this wetland here. So yeah, this is a wetland. which has been mapped as a multi-polygon, and I can see it has two members there. Okay. Yeah, so basically that's a bit about relations. Maybe I'll just show you one simple example. If how do you draw the building that is a multi-polygon? So I'll just draw something like this. Okay, so I wanted this to be a building which is a multi-polygon. So I'll select these two, then I'll come here, and then I'll add it as a multi-polygon. So I'll go to tools, and then I'll say create multi-polygon. So you can see here it has been added type multi-polygon, but it doesn't have the buildings tag yet. So I'll add the tag, which is building equals yes. Okay, so I have my my multi-polygon, which has the inner and the outer. It's a building yes, and the type is a multi-polygon. So that's how I would add a simple example of a relation. But yeah, it will be kind of like the same kind of workflow if I'm going to add like boundaries. So for boundaries, I'll have to add them like the existing boundaries, add a new segment, add it to the relation as a member, and then that means it will be part of that particular relation. So yeah, that's a little bit about the relations. I'll stop here for now and take on any questions. Thank you.
Do we have any questions specifically for Geoffrey? I'm sorry, there was a question along the way of where do you click if you want to download all of the members?
Sorry, come again?
Where do you click if you want to download all of the members? Noel,
okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Let me just show that again. So where do you click if you want to download all the members? I'll just show that again now. So let me see. Just pick a road, which is a route. Then I'll download its members. Okay, so for example, this is Ginger Nakawa Banda Boyogere. So I'll come here, right click. So I'll go to the tags and membership window. Then I'll right click on the route that I want to view. Then I'll come here and say download with members or download members, and then to download all the members that are part of the selected relation. So it's now downloading all of them. So that's where you go to download the members of a relation.
There's also a question that Ralph relayed in the Q&A. How do you tag the polygons if the inner is a different tag to the outer?
How do you tag the how do you tag if the inner is a different tag than the outer? So for the particular part of like the buildings multi-polygon, which I was showing you, so the relation, actually the tag will be on the relation. So the multi-polygon has a tag which is let me just show you here. Just sharing my screen here again. So this is like the multi-polygon which I had drawn, which is a building. And you can see here, if I select this outer, it doesn't have a key or value, the same as the inner. But if I select the relation and click on edit, you realize that the key and value are actually on the on the marked polygon, not on the outer and not on the inner. Yeah, but I would assume, yeah, and I think Michael, you can correct me if I'm wrong. There might be some cases where, for example, it can be a lake, but inside a lake there is an island. So the island has a key and a value, which is island, and then the outer, which is a lake, also has its own key and value, which is waterway, lake. And that means, although the island is inner, an inner part of a lake, it has a different key and value. And the outer also has a different key and the value. I think that's an example, the example I can give, where the inner, which is the island, is tagged as an island, but then the outer, which is the lake, is tagged as a lake. So that means the inner object has a different key and value, and the outer object also has a different key and value.
Okay, that appears to be it for questions specifically for you, Joffrey. We understand if people need to hop off now, but if any of the presenters are available, I have some additional questions that were asked earlier. And if it's okay, Ralph, if you're still here, I'm going to see if I can promote you to a panelist, so you can chime in as well. Some of them are, one question is, how can we get alternate imagery with the latest and high resolution for mapping besides using drone imagery?
Okay, yes, I have been connected.
Okay. Again, the question is, how can we get alternate imagery for mapping, load alternate imagery into JOSM? Is this possible? If so, how? And any of our presenters can hop in to answer this.
Well, as I said previously, we basically only can determine how old the Bing imagery is. This is as far as I know, the only layer which carries imagery capture dates. But that is why I introduced, as one example, this the Sentinel Hub website, where you can have a look how the situation looks currently. And then you can try all those different imagery layers like Bing, Maxar, Esri, and Mapbox, and see which one most closely resembles what you can see in a very recent satellite imagery. And unless you see any other instructions, I would use that one. Yeah.
Is it possible to load new imagery into JOSM, or is that something, if it is that something that is complicated enough that it should be a session unto itself?
Pardon, I didn't quite get the question.
Like, if someone has access to their own satellite imagery due to a licensed source, are they able to load that into JOSM for mapping?
There are plugins available, but of course you should only do that if you really have a license. Yeah, but
of course.
Yeah, but there are imagery plugins available for JOSM.
Okay.
I can also add on that. Yeah, yes, if you have like your own custom imagery, and I can also just quickly show where you can add that from. So under the imagery panel here, if you go to imagery preferences, this shows you the imageries that we have available for mapping, but also if you have your own custom imagery, you have to add it as a TMS. So you just have to add it on the list here. So there is TMS, WMS layers that you can add. So meaning that you have the URL which you paste here, you enter the maximum zoom level, you give your Imagery layer and name. Then you click OK, and when you do that, it will be visible under the available imagery options here, and then you can use it for mapping. So one example is Open Area Map, which is a repository for open and licensed aerial imagery, most of it drone imagery, and you can grab a TMS URL from there, bring it to your JOSM, and then you can use it for mapping.
Okay, thank you. Another question related to opening JOSM. This is someone is curious if actually I don't. Sorry, the question is a bit unclear, so I'm going to skip to the next one. Sorry. For mapping roads, do you have any advice on how to align the road well, and how to ensure for roads and for other kinds of polygons? Are there any tips for ensuring that the line that you are drawing ends up straight? Like if you need to have multiple line sections for a way in a row that are ultimately straight, is there a way to make? Is there anything similar to squaring a building that ensures that they are in line?
Well, I can jump in here because I've got it here in my dossier right now. So let me just show you. Can you see my JOSM right now? Or
Yes.
okay, so there is the tools menu has here align nodes in line. So you just would select those nodes which are not properly straight, and then use this option or hit the L shortcut, and then they'll all end up in a straight line.
Okay, great. Thank you. For mapping in rural areas, do you have any tips for how to tell a road from a stream? Sometimes they can look very similar.
Well, you could look if there are any tracks from wheels in there, which would be a clear indicator that at least it is also used as a track. Because, I mean, in semi-arid areas, riverbeds which fall dry are often used as roads and are only rivers when there is a rainy season, for instance. So, yes, indeed, it is not always clear to distinguish, but yeah. Tire tracks are certainly a good indicator that it is at least also used as a road.
Yeah, and also to add on that, in most cases, roads you'll find that there are always like many straight segments in a road as compared to streams. Streams you'll find there are a lot of like meanders or corners. So mostly streams the streams won't have so many straight segments as compared to roads, unless maybe a road there bends or U-turns, but mostly the roads always have so many straight segments, while streams have so many like meandering or curved segments. Yeah, and also the surface. For the roads, it depends also with the type of roads, because most of the roads you'll have the surfaces are smoother. How do we call it? The image? Yeah, the surfaces are somehow smoother as compared to the streams surfaces. Yeah. Now the roads depends on the material that has been used on the road.
Okay. And there is one more question regarding conflicts and highways. Someone asked, I regularly simplify highways which have nodes close to each other and receive lots of conflicts. Do you have any advice for managing and resolving conflicts when mapping highways?
Well, as I said previously, if someone is doing the other end of the highway, it really shouldn't be a problem to use the conflict resolution window, because they don't really overlap the areas where things have been edited. If you happen to edit a highway, well, right in the middle of a mapathon where nearly everyone is mapping around you, then it might be better to, well, defer your activities until there is a somewhat more quiet period in that area, because then it might be nearly impossible to keep track of all those conflicts. So, but that rarely occurs. So I mean, whenever I ran into conflicts, it was really the highway situation. I was adding points at one end, someone else was adding something at the other end, and it's easy, as I showed to you in that conflict windows, simply to merge all these edits. But yeah, that if I would run into conflict after conflict, I would stop mapping in that area for a while, because that doesn't make sense at all.
Okay. Okay, do we have any final questions or comments from either the audience members or the panelists? Ralph, you are welcome to hop in. I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect.
Right, lovely. What I would like to go back to is the question of dating the imagery. I think this would be for any of the listeners, plus of course the panelists, which would be pretty useful to know. If you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen. Right, let's just see. Right. Just hang on one moment, folks. Hello? Oh, not now. Okay, just wait. Sorry about that. I had a phone call. Right. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay. What I have done is I've opened up OpenStreetMap so you can see this, because I'm going to go and edit with the ID editor. So we're out of JOSM. We're into OpenStreetMap ID editor. The ID editor has got a very good feature which we can all utilize. If I go to my layers and I scroll down to show background panel. Okay, so I'm in layers and I've gone to the background panel and I switch that on, and you can see here down the bottom there is a small box that opens up. This is the background. It says I've got Mapbox satellite open. I'm at zoom level 13. At the present, it says the vintage unknown. But what I can do is I can go to this little blue box down the bottom here and show tiles. And what comes up is a panel with various tiles. So you can see the different tiles that are here. So if any dating is actually known, it will appear. But what is useful of this is to show you where the tiles actually join. So you can check for any problem joins that are there if need be. The other thing that can happen here is, let me show you how this works. If I change to Bing aerial imagery, and you can see it gives you the date of the Bing aerial imagery. So if we do have any dates at all for any imagery that we are showing, we should be able to find it here using the background panel and look for the tiles. And there you've got the tiles of the Bing imagery. If I go to the ESRI, you can see here, once again, the vintage is unknown, but it tells you the tiles and what the boundaries of the tiles are. So that may really very well be helpful at some stage in the future when we start getting these dates fed to us. I hope that is a useful piece of information. Are there any questions on this?
Not on this specifically, but someone has a specific question for mapping roads. How can you add a new bus station to an already mapped road?
Is that question for me or for the panel?
If you are, it's for the panel. Anyone can jump in and share their screen and answer it.
Well, usually a bus station would not be considered as part of the road, so you would simply add a node for that, exactly where you see it.
Mm-hmm.
And, but it's not part of a road because, well, cars can safely pass on the road, not from the bus station, so it's not part of the road. But well, mapping public transport networks, you would add it to a relation, which, for instance, for a bus route, but that's a totally different subject. So nodes of a road should only, well, one of the very rare occasions where they should get a different tag is really bridges, tunnels, and fords, because they're part of the road. But anything which is at the roadside, like traffic lights, traffic signs, bus stops, and the like, should be placed where they really are, but they are not considered physically connected to the road.
What if there is, like, I'm assuming that that holds true even if there is only a sign indicating a bus stop and not like a bench or a small a roof of some sort over the bench. What if there is an unmarked bus stop where it is known by the local community that a bus stop's there, but there is no physical feature that shows that there is a bus stop there? How would one approach that?
Yes, well, I would go for the golden rule of OpenStreetMap that local knowledge on the ground is the first thing to consider. So if it really generally known that the buses will stop there, you could add it. But then I would really add a note saying that this is local knowledge and is a bus stop which is not marked by any sign. Otherwise, chances are that people will remove that.
Okay, thank you. And that is that actually is it for questions. Oh wait, we have one more in Q&A. Can tiles of the same area at different zoom levels have different dates for the imagery, even if the source is the same?
Unfortunately, that is true. Usually when you zoom out sufficiently, you can see imagery which is way older than, well, might even be lots of years older. So because, well, that is not used for mapping at all, so it's just reference. I mean, I think I've let me just seen something quite recently. So let me jump in. Yeah, so right.
I know I've seen this myself where I will zoom in and out and a road and like some buildings will disappear and appear as I zoom in and out.
Sorry, it was just missing the bit. So this is what you see. You can see my JOSM, I'm sure. We're in the Bing layer. No, you can't see it so far.
It's loading now.
Okay, so you can. So here we are approaching Shanghai, and what you can see here is what Shanghai's, well, most recent airport, Pudong, once looked like, maybe 20 years ago. And that's what it looks right now. So if you zoom out one bit, you see a very old state, definitely, because that's what it looks like now. So yes, we do have very different vintage dates depending on the zoom level. But as nobody would trace something from that view, well, it doesn't matter that much.
I believe that, oh, perfect. I was about to show another version of this very slide. Yes, thank you everyone for attending, and thank you to our panelists and Ralph for hopping on. If you would like to reach out to us and give us feedback or ask any questions, for questions, we recommend reaching out to mapper-support@hotosm.org. Or you can also join the Mapper support channel via the hot Slack. There is also the training@hotosm.org email address, as well as the training_working group channel on Slack, which is the best place to provide any feedback and potentially even help to support putting together these kinds of sessions if you would like to be more involved in the training working group. And you can always visit our website, www.hotosm.org, to learn more about the organization as a whole. The video will be available by the end of the day on Tuesday on the Hot YouTube channel. And we will also be sharing a follow-up email with all registrants for the session, whether they were able to attend or not, which will include a link to the video. At the suggestion of someone in the chat, we are going to be experimenting with including chapter markings within the video for each individual section and individual questions, which will make it much easier to reference specific topics that you are interested in the video, rather than having to scroll through the entire thing. But that is also why it'll take an extra day or two to put together. But be assured, there will be a copy of this video available soon, and you will be notified about it. Thank you again, everyone, for attending, and thank you, a big round of applause for our panelists for all of the great insights and information that they provided. Thank you all.
Yep, thank you everyone. Bye-bye.